Hello and welcome to the aForm Show, the premier podcast for all things architecture and design across the MENA region. Welcome to your tribe.
Hello and welcome to the show, everyone. Today we are joined by Sandra Woodall, Design Principal of tangramGULF in the UAE. Sandra has close to 3 decades of experience in the MENA region. Tangram, as a studio, has won multiple international sustainability awards, and this reflects their commitment to excellence. With a deep commitment to environmental responsiveness, Sandra has delivered some of the region's landmark healthcare and social infrastructure projects. So without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome to the show, Sandra.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So it would be fair to say you've been around the region for a while, for a long minute.
Quite a minute, yes.
So for someone who's tuning in who, for whatever reason, has not heard of Tangram, has not seen a project, could you kind of walk us through why Tangram started? What were you looking to do with the studio? What kind of work were you looking to do? Essentially, what I like to ask is, what was the purpose? Were you trying to solve something?
Yes. I think it's a very, very good question. And going back into history now, Tangram, originally we were formed in London in the UK in 1990. We came about through the devolution of we were an in-house architects department for one of the North London health authorities.
Okay.
And the government devolved such business models. And in 1990, Tangram, who after having almost a generation of working together, delivering healthcare in North London, became a private practice. So becoming a private practice expanded their horizons.
Right.
So we were able then, first of all, primarily to work beyond the M25 in London, so work much wider, and also to offering services with different building typologies in different sectors, transferring our knowledge of understanding the delivery of complex technical solutions within a healthcare setting, and to widen that, transfer our knowledge, experience and skills beyond healthcare.
Yeah.
Very, very shortly after, during the first Gulf War, Tangram were invited into Saudi Arabia to rebuild the Al-Kafji hospital, which is based on the Gulf Coast, just outside the Kuwait border. So we were brought in essentially. Our first international project and our first project here in the region was to redevelop a health scheme, which, of course, based on our experience, was what we knew best, what we could do.
Yeah.
So that was the stepping stone into the region.
Wow.
We handed over the Al-Kafji hospital in 1995, and I've lived and worked here in the Gulf ever since.
Okay. So I'm curious then, that Saudi at that point of time was probably a very different landscape. UAE was probably much more different than what it is now. Did you consciously make your way back down to the UAE, or was there a sort of a project that brought you here?
It was a project. It's a very, very large project.
Okay.
Enormous scale.
Okay.
I was brought in, as well as being an architect, I'm an urban designer, so I'm an urbanist. And I was brought to Al Ain to work on the 5-year analysis, review and verification of the Al Ain City Master Plan, which had been implemented in the 1980s.
Right.
The Al Ain City Master Plan at that point was 1/3 the size of Greater London. And the population of Al Ain was around the 100,000 mark. And the population of London was at over 6 million. So a tremendous scale project.
Yes.
If you look. And so I was brought in as an urbanist to review. I worked with the Department of Planning, etc., for my company to look at the growth of the master plan and the evolution of the city.
Right.
Also, being an architect, other skills to fall back on. And I became the project architect for the Etisalat Tower in Dubai, what's known as the new Etisalat Tower, which is just north of World Trade Center roundabout.
Yeah.
There in Dubai. So I went from the scale of 1/3 the size of Greater London to a vertical project. There's 33 stories. So these are all totally different to anything in terms of size and scale and delivery methods of what I'd ever worked on before.
Yeah.
Even in Saudi Arabia, it was a very contained, and at that point, we were bringing our knowledge and experience from outside the region to develop here. So yes, I had a tremendous awakening into the project scale and size here.
Yeah.
So even then, even though we hadn't seen the mass expansion and the rapid urbanization that we've seen since over this last generation, there was still very, very ambitious and very, very great projects to work on.
Right. What I'm sort of seeing as a through line, if you would, is that a lot of these projects have an immense amount of complexity with multiple layers of information and design sort of interweaving with each other, I can only imagine the number of consultants that needed to sort of be on the same page for a project like that, which is probably a good second question, I suppose, which is, from your experience, how do you find consultants? I feel consultants now have become much more specific. You almost have a specialist for anything nowadays. Yes. What's your experience with kind of getting them all on the same page?
Collaboration's key. Working together, having the same vision, the same targets, having the same understanding of what the terms mean when you say you want X, Y, Z.
Right.
Everyone knows X, Y, Z, but they may have their own different understanding of what it actually means when it comes to delivery. Yes. So you have to be on the same page and talking the same language. Right. So it's important to work with people and to prepare and develop your designs and schemes and visions integrated way. So I think we talk today in terms of working multidisciplinary. Today we talk about transdisciplinary, which I think is very, very important. Previously, it could have been that we had a number of consultants with different expertise delivering different specialisms who perhaps worked in parallel. We know today that this isn't enough. We need to be much, much greater integrated with that. We all know the term at the moment is we can't work in silos anymore. So we need to be more integrated, more collaborative. When Tangram first started here, very shortly after, we moved from being an architectural firm to being multidisciplinary. So we brought in we had our own interior designers, landscape designers, irrigation engineers, our own structural, civil engineering, MEP, building services. And of course, because we work a lot in healthcare, we needed specialisms in medical service engineering, which wasn't very common. And it's not, you don't go and buy that service on the street.
Right.
A very specialized part of the buildings that we did then and still do deliver today. Yeah. So it was all about bringing those all together and working with our architecture and urbanism to develop an integrated whole and a holistic approach to design and delivery of the buildings and the public realm and the urbanizations that we do deliver. Yeah. I was very fortunate when I first came here. I had the tremendous scale and the understanding of the desert environment, desert urbanism coming from Al Ain. And then when I did move to Dubai and the Etisalat Tower was progressing, I also then at that point became project architect on a fabulous scheme in Sharjah in the Al Maraba restoration area of Sharjah, which is the arts and heritage area.
I know the area quite well.
Yeah. And so I was project architect there for the Sharjah Art Museum.
Nice.
So an 100-meter long museum over 3 floors, basement floors, parking, and 2 levels of galleries above. And this was done within the heart of what was the original Stone Town area of Sharjah. It's where the coral stone buildings, the palm tree, the teak, the adobe, the mud brick was originally built by hand on the banks of the waterfront there in Sharjah. So I had a tremendous technical introduction to the actual building of traditional architecture, the vernacular here. So understanding of the sikkas, how the clusters of buildings close together created the pathways where people could walk through, shaded from the sun, buildings shaded, and there was a very dense built fabric. We would see teak doors, which were the entranceways to the individual homes, the buildings, and we would see little beyond that. And then going inside, we'd have the courtyards. We would see, of course, the wind towers above the external compound walls, and so the Bajil and the Bagdir cooling systems, utilizing the winds which came from the creek or the winds from the desert. And so I had a tremendous schooling in traditional desert urbanism and architecture, which I think at that time, it was an absolute privilege for me. And it's not something that's really been afforded to very many since. We've seen the tremendous expansion since. Yeah. And it's been so many high-rise towers, glass buildings, etc., which have been quite disconnected from the place where we started off from the climatic responsive designs, which were what grew the settlements in this area to begin with.
True. I think when I was back in university, my sort of graduation thesis project was climate responsive Emirati residential developments. So yeah, I've been fortunate enough to see a lot of what you're talking about. And I constantly ask myself, because we do a lot of residential work back in the studio, why that got lost and why can't we bring it back? Yeah. And I find myself making attempts at bringing it back. And you do see clients who are fairly open to it. Of course, I think where we sort of fall short is maybe the engineers not really having a lot of confidence in materiality and ventilation. But I'm just curious to know what your thoughts are. Could we bring it back?
I think yes, I think we are bringing back the principles, unfortunately. Okay. I think at that time, it was a transition. There was tremendous population growth. There was rapid urbanization. So we were building at speed, and we were building at a much greater scale than ever before. And we were at that point, and as I started by saying, we were importing the knowledge and experience from outside of the region. And so we were bringing people in to build concrete, high-rise, densely populated communities, more so than what we've ever had before. So the building hand by hand, stone by stone, that couldn't keep up with the scale and the pace of what we were delivering. I think the disconnect came when we started to import the materials which were much more widely available for use here for very fast construction and which was what was believed to be needed at the time to cope with the expansion. Yeah. I think we do know it's clear that for the last generation, we've lost sight of what actually works in this region, what's climatic responsive, and what it is that we should be looking to provide. The greatest example, I think, of traditional architect at high-rise level, of course, is World Trade Center in Dubai. That's 100%. A fantastic. Shows you it's got double skin walls. It doesn't have glass curtain walling, so it's got small apertures which let in light, heat, and so I think we can do it at scale. And it's just that there was a whole generation where ideas were imported. People were traveling more. They were going to Singapore, Manhattan, Sydney, seeing what they liked, and they liked what they saw, and they think, "Oh, I want that. Let's have that." And so the ideas were recreated here in Dubai and the UAE. I think today we're now aware, and clients do know, that we have much greater awareness of what sustainability is, what's needed, how we must work to create buildings and cities that are future-proofed and that protect not only the comfort and the life of people, but also the comfort and life of the planet. So now we're having to rebalance. We've got a more global awareness of this. And so locally, our clients here are now demanding that our buildings have higher performance when it comes to sustainability. We all know about the net zero carbon and decarbonization of our economy, not just our buildings and planet. We know the cost of carbon in the built environment. We know that across the world, only 3% of the land is built out by cities. And yet those cities create 70% of the carbon emissions globally. So we know that we've got an imbalance. And clients today want buildings that have greater performance in terms of energy performance. We don't want to recreate, by building fast and building at scale, problems into what we're developing now in our built assets that we've perhaps been contributing to, maybe unbeknowingly, for over the last generation or so. So we have a chance to act now. The clients are aware. They're demanding more, I suppose, data-driven designs. So we're having to show much more responsibility for our actions, for the decisions we are making in the design process. So clients know that we can create a built environment that is more suited to resilience for the future, and they're demanding that now. So I think you will find more and more with your residential work that your clients will get more and more demanding, and rightly so. We're all responsible for what we do and the decisions we make. We need to stand by them now.
I think there's, especially in the kind of work that we're looking at, a lot of our clients are not really commercial to an extent. These are kind of end users looking for homes to reside in, not necessarily flip for 100% margin or something like that. So they're much more conscious about definitely building performance for sure, but also in terms of the intangibles, like the quality of space, framed views, daylight within a space. They're very, very conscious of that now, which is awesome, obviously, for an architect. I'm curious to know what's your sort of read on how demanding the clients get, because on my side, what I can sort of see is that there is, in my opinion, still a demand for what is there sort of outside of the region, in the sense that when clients do travel, they do still sort of bring back a bunch of stuff. But I find that the quality of those requests have gone much higher. It's not so much just, I saw that I want that. It's more that I saw that, I'm not sure why I like it, but I'd like to have something like that.
I think that's very important. I think what's key is we can go out, we can get fantastic references and ideas from elsewhere. When we bring it home, we need to adapt adapt it to suit what our context is here. I think context is key. Very much people are more aware of the environment that they live in today. The internal environment is key. The last 5 years, we were all stuck indoors at one point, and so everyone across the world became much, much more aware of the failings of what their indoor environment was providing. So yes, quality of light, indoor air quality, the materials we use, we need to have low VOC, so we're not releasing toxins into the space. We need to consider the health and well-being of all building users. So the lighting levels, the atmospheres we create, natural materials and colors and textures, which there is a psychology of color and material. For example, if you see blue and greens, those colors calm you. If you see materials that are natural, the stonework and timber, that calms you and makes you feel more, not only at home, but belonging. You belong with your environment. So it's very important that, we can see great ideas elsewhere. You can bring the best designers and the best ideas here, but make it suitable for the environment which we live in. I mean, we perhaps can do more to consider what we introduce within our designs. I think we need to take those extra steps now. The regulations and such which we work to, we have regulations here in UAE across the Gulf looking at the quality of life. Livability is a key performance indicator now for the deliveries which we're having to look to produce. How livable is the space? How livable is the building? How livable is the community and the neighborhood for people who will belong there? So let's make them belong.
100%. I'm curious about a point that you mentioned a while earlier, which was sort of data-driven design. And I think there's a lot of ambitious and passionate architects that are probably tuned in who want to do the right thing and want to sort of push their project in that direction, maybe don't have the data behind them, so to speak. So I'm curious to know from your projects, if you could sort of almost give a top 3 of your insights or findings in data performance. Essentially, if you could tell architects, hey, from our experience, we've found that, something like a certain opening size just works better, a certain structural grid works better. Any insights that you can share?
Yes, certainly. It's all about data today. Data is the most valuable commodity on the planet today. We've been lucky that we work with clients who are able to capture data and analyze it and use it to create different ways of moving forward. For example, we delivered for the government of Dubai, we delivered 12 government buildings in 7 years, in 2004 onwards. So that one client has many, many other buildings besides what Tangram delivered, of course, but they have all the data, all the energy usage data for every building they have. Because when your power bill comes in, you can see how many units you've used, how much water, etc., etc. So building owners have this data at the touch of their fingers. So they, for example, you could look to, even if it's just a basic square meter rate of the building type which you're analyzing, look at it against your older stock. What building did this one replace? What's the performance for that? How much do you pay electricity for your AC today? And how much did you pay 5 years ago or in your old building 10 years ago? And you'll see the difference of how many units you're using. So we all have data, even though we don't maybe recognize that we have that.
Right.
So data, for example, during this series of developments we delivered for Dubai Municipality, one of those schemes had the very first green roof for the Dubai government building in Dubai, the Al Twa Civic Center in Dubai. Now, we know we have data these days which shows us for every 10,000 square meters of green roof or green wall, which we're seeing more and more of today, every 10,000 square meter reduces the internal temperature by 3 degrees. So that in turn really gives you a reduction in the amount of air conditioning you need to use internally to have comfort cooling. You will see that in your electricity bills. You will see that in the shoulder months twice a year when you perhaps put on your AC later than what you used to do before, if you've got a green roof or a green wall, or your AC usage will be reduced, which is all about what we're trying to do moving forward for the future. So you can take that data. Also internally, so that's internally. Externally, if we have planting around buildings and in our streets, there is data. The studies show that utilizing the correct kind of planting, those which use less water, we don't want to move the problem from electricity to water. So if you have planting around buildings and in the streets, that can reduce the external temperature by 10 to 15 degrees. That can make your communities, your sidewalks, much, much more walkable for far longer periods of the year than without. So those two very simple passive design elements that can be introduced into our buildings and our streets, which we can all do. Yeah. We have to be conscious about water usage. There is a scarcity here. So we have to be responsible in what we do and the species that we do choose to incorporate and how we use recycled or the water from our buildings into the irrigation systems, etc., etc. So we can take steps like that, which would build up over time to create much better environment for us all to live in. And they're not difficult to do. We just have to think about it. And so the data from that, you will show your clients that, if we green this space, it will reduce the temperatures. We reduce the temperatures, it reduces your power load and also reduces the amount of money that comes out of your pocket in paying for that power.
Right. True.
So it's all the benefits can be shown. We just need to be more aware of them and talk to our clients in terms which they understand. So we're not going to say kilowatt hours or ambient temperatures, etc., etc. You say reducing your AC, reducing your power, reducing your expenditure.
That'll get the sign off from everyone.
So it's all about the collaboration and using the same terminology and understanding what the same words mean.
True.
So we just need to talk to each other more.
Who would have thought? That's all it comes down to. Fascinating. I've been a fan of green roofs myself, and I think we've successfully done it in a few projects. Obviously, it becomes a bit tricky in terms of the technicality, in terms of having the right sealants and getting a good structural load for your soil base and etc., etc. But yeah, it definitely is the right way to go, I feel. I think at this point, I'm almost curious to ask, because you have such a wide and deep understanding of how buildings are put together and how they work in this context over here. I'm almost curious about the future now of Tangram. With this sort of wealth of knowledge that you have, looking forward, what are the kind of projects that you want to be doing? Ideally, I suppose the short question would be, what would be the ideal client to walk in and say, hey, Sandra, this is what we have, that would get you completely fired up?
We have some fabulous clients who do this. We're very fortunate here. There is ambition here in the UAE, and clients want more and more. They're more and more demanding. We want clients who push the borders, because what's been delivered for the last couple of generations, we need to change it. True. So we need clients who have different mindsets from what we've witnessed in the past. I think each and every project we address and every project that comes in is always the project we've always been waiting for, the project we want. Really, really is. We're at the stage now that, most of what we've learned in the past and our experience is being taken. It's not just we don't get asked to deliver a mega project. Right. We get asked to come and be an advisor to the client on the teams that are delivering the mega projects and what to look for and what questions to ask, how to work with other consultants, our peers, each and every one. We started off by saying there's so many specialists these days. No one company anymore can deliver one product, one building or one city district or neighborhood. It takes such a combination of so many different specialists that no one practice could go and do everything anymore. It doesn't happen anymore. Projects are far too complex for that. So it's better to work with the best minds in the business. We can learn from them. Hopefully, to some extent, they could perhaps take from us, maybe from our long-standing understanding here of development and of what works in this context. And we can recreate, we can reimagine and reinvent the principles and the philosophies we've used in the past and reinvent them in the modern contemporary way. Maybe there are new materials. Maybe we have to look at new ways of doing things, but we can always connect together the great ideas, the great minds, and the great specialisms. So I think that more and more, we don't want to go out and get the biggest projects in the world and Tangram deliver it. No, we want to work with the best minds in the world who are all working together to deliver this.
Interesting.
So it's less about one product now and more about, I think it's the sharing of knowledge and we learn each and every project we learn from and we learn from others. And so it's combining all that together today, which is, I think, the way forward to move. Everyone was siloed in the past. Yes, we all had commercial interests. Yeah. We all had contracts which we need to secure and we need to deliver. But today the boundaries need to move. I think in the future, we need to work together more because we have one single priority together, and that is this one planet that we do have, and we need to secure a future for that. And if that means that we all have to work together, then we need different ways of working than what we have had in the past.
100%. Yeah. I must say, a very inspiring vision. I'm almost fired. I'm like, yeah, let's do it, man. Let's go. No, but that is so true. I mean, and to be honest, it's a very refreshing perspective. We obviously, as a podcast, do this quite often with many firms. And this is probably the first time where the answer has been quite contradictory, almost, in the sense that it's typically firms always, want the next project, want the larger project, want to scale up, want to have, more staff, offices across the world, et cetera, et cetera. That's typically the vision. But this is quite refreshing to think about connecting minds to an extent.
Yeah,
that's quite cool. I'm inspired.
Thank you very much.
So as we sort of wind down the show, we typically like to look forward, as we already have with Tangram. I'm curious to know, for Sandra, what is on the horizon? What are you working towards? Anything going on in the background that a designer audience would find interesting?
I think there's a lot moving forward. There's a lot of changes happening. There's a lot of transitions. We see it in the marketplace. We see it with our clients, the way our clients are thinking, the way our clients are looking to change what and how they do things. For me, that's fascinating, because at the moment, we are shaping the way forwards. You, I, everybody else, we're all working together to shape the way forwards into offering a new space, a new way of working, a new way of delivering. I think for me at the moment, I enjoy more and more working with young people, with students. I'm more and more being involved in universities and being asked to. I've got a teaching series coming up at one of the universities next year where I'll be teaching studio, which is the first time I've ever done this. So don't tell my students, my prospective students, I'm absolutely terrified at the moment. So there's always new things to do, new ways to do things. And this is what I look forward to, because here in the Gulf, in the profession we're in, once you've done something, that's it. Tomorrow, you do something completely different, something totally new. And everyone always asks me about what next project, what project you're working on, what's next. My next project, honestly, today, I probably haven't heard of what my next project is yet. I probably don't have a clue, because we don't know what will come in tomorrow until tomorrow arises. So we can't wait. We can't wait to take something new and run with it and do different things.
Nice.
This is Sandra, and this is the way I'm going forward at the moment.
Very cool.
Just embracing everything new that comes our way.
Nice. Again, very refreshing. Loving what I'm hearing. Sandra, as a sort of closing tradition to the show, we have something called the aForm tradition, which is it's sort of a bit of fun, actually, to kind of end the episode on. What it is essentially a question that's been asked by a previous guest to the next guest, not knowing who the next guest is. So it's completely blind. You don't know who asked the question. The person who asked it doesn't know who's going to get it. And to make things a bit more fun, we sort of jump them all up. So no one ever knows who's going to get the question. So, and sometimes they're a bit of fun. Of late, they've been exceptionally silly. But yeah, I'll pull it up right now. Well, it's actually a pretty interesting one. We've had a similar phrased question before, but yeah, this is a bit of fun. It says, in brackets, there's an S after. Okay, so could you share a movie or movies which an aspiring designer should look at? Could be within the last decade or later. So I think it's a single movie or could be a series of movies which an aspiring designer, which probably means someone who's a fresh grad to an extent, should probably look at. I typically like to think of answers myself as well. I don't know. I keep going to like The Fifth Element or something like that. Like Bruce Willis in Flying Cars.
Yes. But that's such a tough one, isn't it, really?
Or maybe Dune. I think Dune's architecture was really good.
Yeah, that's definitely. Yeah. For me, always, if you look at the movie, great series, so many movies, maybe it's got a little repetitive and you know what the formula is and you know what's going to happen next. But for me, for architecture, I think Mission Impossible certainly has some great architecture in there. Some fantastic standalone buildings, which they really do ignite your passion. For interiors, I think there was a series, I think it was called Madam Secretary. Okay. And you look at the interiors of those offices. I always dreamed of one of those offices. Fantastic. I'm not unhappy with my own, but those are very inspiring. I'm always amazed at what interior designers do and how they put everything together to create atmosphere. And then I suppose at city scale, so much that you can look at, but it's the new worlds, the Dune, etc., where you're looking at something which is totally unexpected and not not what you're used to. When you see something different, when you see something new, that inspires, definitely. And that's why I'm always can't wait for tomorrow, because no matter how fabulous today is going, and some of them go extremely fabulously well, there's always more to come, which is definitely our philosophy here at Tangram. And we can't wait for tomorrow.
Nice. I think for me, just to sort of add a bit to my Dune answer, was that I think it was the first time that I mean, I'm a sci-fi fan to an extent. Slightly. I thought for me it was quite cool to actually see almost a dystopian, to an extent, dystopian contextual desert architecture, and done pretty well. If you kind of look at it carefully, you can really see the really controlled slit of lights, which are, the windows, and the heavy massing to sort of, break thermal massing out. And there's so many principles that we spoke about earlier, even, narrow corridors and the way passive cooling happens, and integrated in a very sort of futuristic way. I thought that was quite cool. And I remember watching that movie thinking, that would make a really good courtyard. I was like, yeah, that would actually work.
That's the next project.
Yeah, maybe. Sandra, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for your time. We could obviously chat forever, but I think we'll definitely have you on again in the future. For anyone who wants to get in touch, we'll have, Tangram's sort of contact details down in the show notes. And yeah, on behalf of the entire crew, thank you so much for giving us your time. The show is only possible because of people like yourself giving us your time. So we're very grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Awesome.
Thank
you. For the rest of you guys, we will catch you guys next week.
Fellow aFormer, thank you so much for your time. If this episode added any value to you, please share it with anyone who may benefit. If you want to carry on the discussion, please get in touch with us over socials. We are at aForm Show on the gram and hello@aForm.studio on email. That is at aForm Show on the gram and hello@aForm.studio on email. Until next time, stay inspired.